moistly.
Moistly.
Keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. Greg and I have been chatting for like 20 minutes in the green room, and I think twice, maybe you're like, should we record this? Should we just start recording this right now? Like, what's going on? So we've been talking about the usefulness of the show. I think, well, maybe we'll start there and we'll reason. Like you were saying, like we always talk about the same things. Let's talk about all this other stuff that we're talking about. Let's engage with, we were talking about pornography and the ease of access and the inversion of, I was saying you can pretty much get people to believe anything you want and to propagate anything you want. So like if the zeitgeist is, or if the ideal situation is a family, you can get people to say, well, I never want a family. I want to be in an isolation metaverse box and like argue with people that a family is actually destructive to your self-actualization.
Sure. I think hi everybody. I think to set it in the proper context of the show, it's, so many people right now are just baffled at how quickly we're just like selling our whole society out of freedom and like all these things. And it's like, how did nobody stand for anything? Have we no connection to our past? Have we no like self-respect? Like we're just letting this major violation of our body happen on a regular basis now. Mm-hmm. How did this happen? And I think when it comes to, what we were talking about in the green room, the truth is this has been happening for a long time. It's almost like the rug has already been pulled without us even knowing it. And now, a better analogy would be like, the foundation of a free nation has already been chipped away at entirely. Yeah. And so when something like this happens with, hey, vaccine mandates, it's like, we just crumble because the foundation's already gone.
Right. I think you're exactly right. We were talking about how latchkey kids were something that happened when I was growing up. Kids who would
explain it for people.
Well, yeah, that's part of the foundation. So you were saying it's the absence of God and the absence of morals that has led to this explosion
because
and I agree with you.
Yeah, because we could talk about the proliferation of pornography and how it's a lot more widely accepted. We could talk about how,
but that's a direct result. That's a direct result. Hold on, I want to make a point because I agree with you, but that's a direct result. So like the acceptance of pornography as like sex work is work, pornography is whatever, a thing that is totally acceptable and is easily accessed by anybody with an internet connection. Literally on your phone, you could get whatever you want.
They're all porn machines, guys.
Is it direct? Yeah. Is it? Well, I saw an anecdote of somebody's Reddit account back when I used to Reddit years ago. It said like, how many months does your usual Reddit account like end up just like connected or subscribed to like so many porn subs that it's just a porn account then? And I was like, what is wrong with you? But that kind of mentality has been slowly been made acceptable because parents weren't there to raise their kids, because parents were like, well, I've got to, make the money. So here's the key to the house, kids. Go in the house, lock the door. You'll be safe. Don't let anybody in. We'll be home to make dinner. We'll raise you, whatever. But really it's the teachers who are just fine with advocating for transgenderism and advocating for transitions for kids before puberty.
It's a good thing. It's puberty. Progressive, right? Because we're loving.
And they've been replaced. So parents have been removed and put out to work, and the kids have been slowly indoctrinated by these teachers. And it's happened since you were saying it's happened since we've been alive, since you've been alive.
The final steps, I would say, of like deteriorating the foundation ever since I've been alive, which is like 1989.
Yeah. I was in 81, and I think I witnessed it in real time. My parents were traditional. Like my dad is, both of my parents are immigrants, but they grew up in situations that were unique to them. And coming to Canada, it wasn't like we had a whole big community that was informing us. So we kind of made our own way. So that influence wasn't necessarily part of my growing up. So 1981, I was watching friends kind of raise themselves on TV, but it's
right. So that's an interesting thing you bring up. And I brought up like, the absence of God, because I feel like that is the common thread. And because it doesn't happen.
Or the goal.
Well, sure, depending on whose perspective you're speaking from. But, all this didn't really happen quickly. Like it didn't happen overnight. It's been slowly but surely, the public relations team for Christianity and Catholicism, like you guys have been terrible. You've been getting dominated
Well,
out there.
and they've got they've got such a big fan base. And the thing is, like, I was even shopping for a church that I could stomach, but every one of them has been usurped by the New World Order. Progressivism.
Rainbow flags, Satanism
we've got
in the sky.
Well, it's
Satanism in the skies, I tell you.
Well, it's 5 minutes into the sermon most times before they're talking about how we have to help refugees and we have to bring people to Canada to help them out. And my immediate thing is like, you're just parroting the same lies. So I can't with good conscience hand my eternal soul over to you for guidance. Like, what do you think I should do? The government?
Yeah.
Like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So, yeah. But carry on. Sorry.
What I'm trying to think back to what you were saying before with the kids and the latch kids.
Yeah, the latchkey kids being raised by themselves, and that being a direct line to kind of the erosion of morals, and then the outcome of that.
Yeah, I was going to say I talk about like Satanism in the skies. I've really been warming up to Christianity since the pandemic, quite frankly. And it seems to be the only thing that makes sense anymore. But I just really believe that when it comes to, I'm a guy who worked in like sales and marketing and this sort of thing. And, when seeing a product, seeing if I want to work with somebody, I always love to look at the case study. So a case study is, here's an example of my work and how it's helped people in the past. And if you look at world history and you objectively look at the case study of Christianity, of the Bible, sure, you can find a lot of crappy things that have happened in the name of Jesus Christ or in the name of an organized religion. However, like there's also a lot of really great case studies there that like it's like kind of like the foundational aspect of that. And I'd like to bring it to, I like to bring up architecture, for example, because it's like, why do you go to Europe? You go to Europe for all the beautiful architecture. We live in a godless society now. I'm in Toronto. The architecture reflects that.
Yeah.
It's a godless boxes everywhere. It's very ugly. It's very not beautiful.
Yeah.
And maybe you could make up some story of, the architecture was only like that because of blah, 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 blah. But it's like, there's a reason this book has been so popular for so long.
Well, and they used to spend 300 years building a cathedral. Can you imagine this is the fourth person named, this is the fourth son of this architect to, finish this cathedral. And you're just like, that's what, like how conceptualizing running with all that. The other aspect of this, we were talking about the Island Boys, right? We were talking about Island Boys. I said I thought Island Boys.
Island Boys.
Yeah, that one. Those guys.
Island Boys. But these are two white guys with like
crazy here. I'll put
and,
one of the Island Boys up on the screen here. This is the one where I shared it with you as well, Greg, but I'll show everybody else. I'll share screen. The Island Boy in this clip is talking about how he is sold his soul and he's not happy about, he's not been happy since he sold his soul. He says, Island Boy said he sold his soul. Okay, well, he says a whole bunch of stuff there. And I'm just going to scroll down from, but he's talking here about not being happy since he sold his soul. So, you guys can't see that. Sorry about that. I thought you could see that. So here's the Island Boy person. So that's who we're talking about if you've not seen them before. But this is a thing that is a recurring theme in Hollywood. Netflix is owned by Vanguard and BlackRock, right? Just like everything else is owned by Vanguard and BlackRock. So it's a very interesting situation. I mean, have you seen like we were talking, you were talking about Satanism. Have you done a casual scroll through of Netflix looking for themes around Satanism and there's zombie shows like crazy and like cannibalist shows, like the whole where it's funny where you're following like sympathetic zombies who have to like kill and eat their neighbors and you're like, oh ha ha ha, what a awkward situation to get into.
And I really once again like to bring up, we can talk about the presence of evil as much as we want. The 7 deadly sins are so not only are they prevalent, in our culture. They are like celebrated.
Did you see the Cosmo?
They're encouraged, rewarded, pride, envy, wrath,
oh my goodness,
sloth, greed, gluttony. I think I got them all. Lust, like it's everywhere in our culture. And again, it's like this casual acceptance of all of it would only be possible if we kind of just slowly eroded God out of our society, where it's like, that stuff doesn't matter, that, sins, that why would we worry about sins? Why would we worry about this? That's not important, and look at this picture. We live in a hellscape now. Look at this. What is this?
Yeah. Well, this is Cosmopolitan 2018, even.
Big is big and morbidly obese is beautiful.
Is success an illness?
Bruh. The high flyers.
Demoralization 101. So that's kind of the stuff that is like we were and the reason that I said like the usefulness of the show, I said like sometimes I think at the end of my show, like this could be last Tuesday or last Thursday. The only thing that's different is the pending doom is another 2 weeks out, right? Like, and it's so this is the demoralization is never ending. You're being bombarded with pictures that are meant to invert your view of reality, and the touchstone that we used to use to validate our existence or to validate the normal, what normal is, right? Like what a normal free society is being papered over so we can't see it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you talk about it,
wherever you are in your political journey, if you like, I don't want to do the thinking for people. Let me just share my political journey. Essentially, I saw all these things going on. How do you explain this? How do we explain that? And a lot of people say this. At the end of the day, you have good and evil. You have these two, like that's kind of like what you are left with at the very end of the day. And I really, I don't know. I really encourage people, although it's simplistic, although it might feel backwards. I really think that looking at it through that lens, actually, although it might be kind of scary and uncomfortable, for me personally, it's given me a lot of peace of mind because it almost like creates a very kind of simplistic view of what's going on. And then I don't have to sift through the chaos or even take the chaos seriously. I just see the chaos for what it is, chaos. And, I can work to make sense of it for other people and like, pick apart the evil and call out the demons and all that's going on. But I guess I've gotten a lot of peace of mind out of like simplifying my kind of worldview through that lens. Because it's, I'm really tired of like giving things that I think are evil and chaotic excuses, or giving people who are defending it excuses. Because I'm just so tired of that.
Yeah. The hard thing, like I hear what you're saying, and having kind of like, good versus evil, it makes it easy to understand kind of the macro stuff, like the larger person on Cosmo there.
Larger picture. You mean.
The woman, the large green. The woman wearing the green bathing suit thing. Yeah. And like the Calvin Klein ad, the
plus, not the larger picture, the plus size picture.
The plus. Yeah. And the, like to understand that, like from a macro level, to understand that there are people pulling strings to normalize things that invert or change fundamentally other people's view of themselves. Right. And then, but on an individual level, I maintain that people don't like being Darth Vader in the story, right? Like, if they're telling the story, they're Luke Skywalker, they're not Darth Vader, right? Like, they're the good guy, they're not the bad guy. Sure. So, like, there are people who have been trained through a very, very concentrated and serious and well-funded education campaign, that like fat is beautiful, right? That's just one example. Right. Critical race theory is an example of people being trained in a very specific way. White is bad, like period. That's what critical race theory is. But there are trainers out there, and I'm pointing at this because the larger person is still on the screen here. But
for those watching, me and Mark are very, very, very fat phobic, and we
no, like I was bigger. Like the thing is, like I view it as something.
I'm kidding. I just wanted to make a stupid
Sorry.
comment.
No, because like the thing is, I used to be bigger and I really didn't understand fundamentally how to lose weight. I was bigger and trapped bigger. Like I didn't understand, and it didn't matter the searches that I did. I couldn't get anybody to explain to me how to find out reasonably how much I should eat and how to put that into action. Right. And I never, and
how'd you do it? How'd you do it?
I hammered it out for myself. Right. Like honestly, and the only way to do it is to, and like there were clues, but people were talking above my understanding level. Like there were bodybuilders who understood how to drop weight quickly or how to drop weight and like why you can't lose more than a pound a week. Right. Like, because your body has a base metabolic rate. Like if you just sit there,
right,
calories,
you'll yo-yo otherwise.
Right. Well, the best, if you remove 500 calories a day, that's hard to do. If you can't remove 1,000 calories a day and be able to push through with willpower, because you just won't, you don't have enough willpower to do it. So the way I figured it out is basically like, don't remove more than 500 calories in a day and change your time frame from like 6 weeks to lose 10 pounds to like 2 years, right? And not just to lose 10 pounds, but you have to learn to negotiate with yourself. But we're in a society that doesn't prioritize real information on how to do it. And like, I'm imperfect, right? Like I didn't do it the only single right way. I did it the way that worked for me. And you have to you have to learn to negotiate with yourself. And that's something that's lost with advertising to people like this. Like, you're just fine the way you are. Ignore that voice in your head that says you shouldn't be out of breath at the top of the stairs. Like, no, you should listen to that voice and you should do something about it. You can, and you shouldn't just accept that your big, beautiful body is such. You should try and be healthy, right? And like, but you get to make that decision. And so I think that it's really like you, the ubiquitous you, the person has to look at it. But fundamentally, when you have a situation where somebody like that, somebody who's very big like that, who's very unhealthy, because you can't be healthy when you're that big, I'm sorry, right? Like, there are issues, there's going to be issues. Then they're being dishonest. And like, that's just one microcosm, right? Critical race theory is another exactly the same.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you know, again, going back to my good and evil journey, one of the big misconceptions that I had about evil and like sin and the devil, and like, you know, I mean that in a very sort of like, you know, conceptual way. When I talk about Christianity, I really mean it in like a moral lessons kind of way, almost like a Jordan Peterson sort of like, what are the great moral lessons that we can learn about ourselves and the human condition that apply to us all the time, especially, you know, universally. Like, that's kind of what I've become obsessed with over the past year specifically, is these useful moral lessons. But one of the misconceptions I feel a lot of people have about evil is they think it's just like this like horned devil who's like, ha, 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 like I'm mischievous and I'm going to mess with you. When in reality, one of the first things that you learn about like Lucifer is that he appears to be like very handsome and seductive and attractive, and he's very, you know, he kind of like, he's your friend, and he persuades you, and it's subtle and it's little things, and it's just a little bite of an apple, it's a little taste, and that is how it fundamentally operates. And it's you know, it's these little things that continue to build up and build up and build up. But to kind of take it back to what you were just saying, you know, listening to that voice in your head of, ooh, maybe I should cut back on, you know, the chocolate cake or what have you. I feel like the difference between good and evil when it comes to like that narrative in our head, it's as simple as the father and the voice of a child. You know, like the father is the one who has to be responsible and make the tough decisions and say, listen, like, I know you don't want to do this, but you need to, you know, go to bed early. You need to eat well. You need to try to, like, you know, treat yourself well. And this sort of, you know, wisdom, I want to say, it comes from somebody who has experience. It comes from somebody who takes responsibility, all of these positive virtues that, quite frankly, built the modern world and that we should value, versus, and this is what's starting to dominate, is this very childlike, simplistic voice. And you could apply this childlike, simplistic voice to probably every political issue going on right now, where it's something that maybe sounds cute, maybe sounds attractive. Love is love. or critical race theory, like white supremacy.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
okay, like, it sounds kind of cute, it sounds charming, like it sounds like the kid has good intentions, but if you actually just look at the basic logic of what he's saying, it's like, this is childlike.
Yeah.
This
So
is childlike.
here's something that happened to me this morning. I was on Twitter because
because
well, I'm collecting stories for my show. So there's a CBC guy who lives in Guelph. Like, he's a CBC reporter. He does a morning show or something like that.
He's your best friend. Then
I talked about it too long. I was surprised that we haven't collaborated earlier. We were both hanging out at the bars playing music. He's the singer for the Cramdens or something like that. Anyway,
Okay.
he's a CBC podcaster now. And he was saying that he was going to have somebody on talking about how they're starting to try and get landlords in Guelph to open their doors to homeless people because reasons. And I was like, what? I was like, this is insanity. And today's the day that Roxham Road opened as well, right? So I started talking about that, and we got talking, him and I, talking about
this is on Twitter,
the safe injection site. Yeah, he responded to me, and he was basically he was like, hold on, let me understand, because Guelph, I said, Guelph just bought a hotel, and Guelph spent $1.2 million. County Wellington, supported by the city of Guelph's councillors, spent $1.2 million to buy a park that is right beside Riverside Park, which is the signature park in Guelph, to put basically a homelessness program, homeless shelter, program.
Okay.
With like a staffed program.
Is there a building there? Or
there's a building there. Yeah,
okay,
it's
so
like
bought a hotel,
and they were using it.
Shelter.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent. Like, it's not. It wasn't like it was a nice hotel previously, and they're going to use it as a shelter. Like, it's been used as a shelter for a little while, but I don't think the whole thing was used as a shelter. I think some of it was used as a shelter, and some of it was used for other reasons. But fundamentally, now the whole thing is a shelter. It's a homeless shelter. Blah 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 blah. So he's saying, I said, we just spent all this money on buying a hotel for homeless people, and now we need like more expand. Like, now we're eating into the resources for or the available inventory of rentals for other people who maybe need it, like graduating high school or college students, people who are moving to Guelph. Like, this is not great, but we should be focusing on other things. And he said, hold on, like basically insinuating that I'd had my facts wrong. I showed him that I had my facts right. But he ended up trying to dismiss me and laugh at me, calling me funny. And I was saying, why do you think? And fundamentally, my argument was that the safe injection site doubled the overdose deaths in Guelph from 2019 to 2020. And he said, well, how do you know it's the safe injection site? And it doesn't matter if it's the safe, right? It doesn't, just the virtue, the fact that the overdoses doubled.
Correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right, exactly. He's like, what, did they die there? And I was like, it's just so frustrating. So like, that's the kind of bias we're dealing with. And then ultimately he tried to dismiss me by laughing at me. And I was like, what do you think is funny? Like, what about people dying about drug overdoses do you think is funny? And so this is the level of discord that we're dealing with. Even if you can call somebody out, even if you can point out, like, they should be engaging with these serious topics in a serious way, they'll try and dismiss you through laughter and through like gaslighting you. And it's wild.
And ridicule, and mockery. And like, that's not really discourse.
No.
And like, because you said what level, this is the level of discourse, and it's like, that's not really even discourse. And
that's true.
It's really troubling, the the state we're in when it comes to political discourse, because you're right. When it comes to refuting any PPC policy, for example, did any journalist, politician, any talking head ever, like in the mainstream news, ever give it a fair shot to even talk about it?
No.
Or is it just like, I'm going to heavily imply that you're racist. I'm going to heavily imply that you are a white supremacist, or I'm going to heavily imply that you're a climate change denier. It's like, there isn't discourse anymore.
No.
And
it's funny.
There's even been a trend of debates happening less often, real debates. And the debates that happen now are just so painfully orchestrated and produced, and just a disgusting soup of rhetoric and just like checking off the boxes of what they talk about every night on CBC. And just like this disgusting high school performance of some play that I did not want to watch. Who wrote this?
Yeah. Did you see? Okay, so have you been paying attention to Australia?
Ah, man, I've only been seeing. I saw a clip of the one guy speaking with wide eyes. If you challenge the mandates, you're anti-vax. And I was telling my friend this morning.
Holy cow!
This is so absurd because this is essentially a politician in a free country saying, yeah, you know what? The words don't matter. And we're just playing with the words as rhetoric. He's saying, yeah, if you're against the mandates, you're actually anti-vax. Like, I'm refusing to say there's a difference between opposing the mandates and being it's like, so you're just admitting that this is a game of rhetoric and, controlling language. Like, you're basically
I'm glad you focused on the eyes, because I couldn't, as soon as he started talking, he was animated and his eyes were just like,
I retweeted a video that's like zoomed in, like right on his
just
face.
on his eyes.
It's terrifying. It's actually terrifying. It's like, hey, this guy's working for the people, by the way. Like, this is the good guy. This is the good guy.
He's on your side.
This horrifying authoritarian screaming at you. This is for your health and safety. So, I also made a comment. You can see the science in his eyes.
Yes, the science is right, just right there
in his eyes.
It's so funny because it reminds me of people who are very, like, they virtuously will proclamate whatever is needed to be in the good books, right? And it's like he wants you to believe what he believes so much that he's willing to go on TV or on the video there and not necessarily look a fool, but threaten people. Like, this is it's not an idle threat in Australia.
And honestly, this might turn some people off or freak some people out, but we have to work with what we got in the situation we're in. So
how dare you, sir?
So no, but I mean that as in, like, mocking, ridicule, laughing at people. As childish as that is, that might be the better approach for people in Maxime Bernier's situation.
The truth isn't working, that's for sure.
The truth certainly isn't working. Explaining certainly isn't working.
Mm-hmm.
And the major shift the major step that needs to be taken is creating our own moral framework, where the worst thing ever is injecting children. The worst thing ever is mandating this product that, quite frankly, hasn't been proven to work at all.
It looks like it's failing. Did you see the Ontario numbers today? There's more. There's more. No, I know. The only reason I do is because I'm trying to do my show every day.
Yeah. No, of course.
But the numbers are like, Golden Pup posted it, and then Golden Pup does a lot of analysis.
Golden Pup?
Golden_pup. Yeah, he's a good data guy. And he posted it first, and then CP24 followed up with, so the unvaccinated had fewer cases than the fully vaccinated breakthrough cases for the first time. Ha ha ha. And I was like, at what point is their narrative is blown? Like, it doesn't make any sense. All of the things that they're saying, like I posted, Cam Guthrie today posted on Twitter's talking about how there'll be a town hall talking about the budget. And I was like, and I copied the CP24 tweet that talked about how the more breakthrough cases than unvaccinated cases. And I said, what's the justification for a vaccine passport? What are you doing to end the illegal mandates and roll back the vaccine passport? Like, what are you doing?
Questions.
This is, are you not standing up for the people who elected you? If it's not your job, put out a letter that says, in Guelph, we're excited to get back to normal. And we see that the virus is indiscriminate about the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. In fact, it looks like it likes the vaccinated even more. So we're going to repeal all the bullshit, and we wait for Doug Ford's lawyers to kindly come and shut us down. Thank you.
I've personally, the people are back in the House of Commons, and I don't know if they always did this, but I'm seeing all these photos from conservative MPs. And it's like little photo ops of like, hey, here's my new house buddy, like my new neighbor in the House of Commons. Like, they're doing all these photo ops, and
I saw that with Lloyd.
It's getting traction on Twitter, and it's like, guys, this is disgusting. Like, to do photo ops right now with everything that's going on, like just to distract us from the fact that you did not stand up for vaccine mandates when it mattered
Mhm.
during the election.
Yep.
And then you kind of, not posthumously, but like post the election said, well, us as MPs, should we have a mandate to be in the House of Commons? It's like, you weaklings, you
Mhm.
weak cowards.
Well,
And now you're going to do a little
Yeah.
photo op. And it's just,
I noticed that when
God, it pisses me off.
Yeah, I noticed that in 2019 when Lloyd Longfield went back to the House of Commons after our election, he was, because I followed him on Twitter.
No,
and that
you're wrong. Don't undermine my point right
that
now.
was the
Don't
thing. Well, I mean, I'm just saying it's a thing.
dare
they
you
did.
do that, Mark.
It's yeah, I mean, the House of Commons is, I feel like if there were a place that was thumbing their nose at all of this in Canada, you'd feel the wrath of something or other. There would be consequences, I feel like. So I don't know. I don't know what the way out of this is. It's interesting watching Austria. It's interesting watching their citizens react. It's interesting watching Australia. It's interesting watching their citizens react. I don't know what it'll take to wake most Canadians from their slumber. It is a shocking thing that's happened.
I think we're one of the worst off countries in terms of like, well, we're one of the worst off countries in terms of average like attitude and disposition towards tyranny in our own country, because we've never even come close to anything like that, really.
I think it's
in our own country.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's a push comes to shove thing. Like, I think people are trying to avoid this. Everybody is of ducking and covering because they don't want to engage with it. Because if they engage with it, then you can't unring that bell.
I talk to my own mother, love her to pieces. And at the beginning of all this lockdown stuff, she was I love her. She was so earnest. And she just said, Greg, I'm a baby boomer. I've never had to deal with anything like this in my entire life. And I was like, well, what about, ignorant me? I'm like, well, what about the Vietnam War? And she's like, that was in the States. That didn't affect us at all. And like, she really, like, her generation, she's in her 60s now, but like that whole generation in Canada have never had to deal with anything, anything at all. That's like a challenge, like,
well, they saw, like, they didn't.
Their literally their biggest crisis is like their vacation getting canceled.
They didn't see, right, but they didn't see, like, you and I started the show talking about this isn't a 2018 somebody was like, you know what, let's go invade Canada, right? Like, that's not what happened. What happened was in 1980 there was a demoralization campaign that was on the heels of a misinformation campaign about diet. Do you remember when diet was like, you have to eat 9 or like 7 portions of wheat per day or something like that? The dietary pyramid or whatever.
Yeah, I remember the pyramid.
Right. So like, this is misinformation.
Etched into my mind.
Yeah, but that
was red. It was the smallest, and then it was.
That's the Canada Food Guide. That's slightly different.
It's like, okay.
Yes, anyway, slightly different. But in the 1970s, in the United States, there was a whole big misinformation push. It was to start the aerobics. Like, people didn't need gyms. They didn't need diets. Diet pills were basically speed back then.
Right.
They were.
I've seen Requiem for a Dream.
Okay. Yeah, buddy. That's it. And there was another one with, is it The Big Lebowski? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they, on the heels of that, the demoralization of the West began in earnest. And like, I grew up through that era, and it was positioning, right? It was positioning people in places of power with Mockingbird Media. I think Project Mockingbird, I think is the code name for it. It was supposedly stopped. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right?
Yeah.
Renamed, and maybe, right? I've seen Jason Bourne.
Just to speak to this real quick, I saw this random TikTok, and this guy was talking about a red country over in the East that has 5 gold stars, and was talking about how their warfare division, their military division has very specifically, they have, like psychological warfare is one of them, legal warfare, and I think media warfare or something like this. But when he was talking about
irregular warfare,
but when he was talking about psychological warfare, he's like, it's important to remember psychological warfare isn't necessarily lying. It's altering your perception of information. And in many ways that can be even more detrimental than just lying. completely altering your perception of
Yeah.
certain
And
information.
well,
right?
when I've got to go get my
Cases versus deaths, for example.
nailed it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
the teeth were cut, so the tracks were laid by communist China, because their propaganda teams. So like in World War II, they were fresh faced babies coming up with propaganda, right? And they were great at it. Like look at all the accomplishments that they were able to get the German people to do through their propaganda. That's a success by any measure. And they were just getting started, right? And through that to now, and like we've got the internet, we've got Facebook.
Dude, they own Reddit, don't they?
Yeah,
Don't
they own Reddit. Yes, Reddit,
which is like one of the top
useless.
10.
They killed the guy. They killed the guy who came up with
websites.
it. Yeah, I think Reddit was number 3. I'm shocked that it's.
You think they killed that guy? That's such a bold statement, bro. I don't know if you're allowed to say that.
Aaron Schwartz. Aaron Schwartz.
Well, there's a great documentary about him.
I don't think that I'm making news by saying that. I think people close to him believe that. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the documentary I saw, but I hope I'm not making news on that or anything.
Yeah,
like
but
that.
to say that it was China, to say it was them or whatever, that's a lot.
Oh no. Anyway. China took ownership of Reddit later. No, they didn't kill. China didn't have anything to do with that. No, they the people who killed Aaron Schwartz had to do with, like, I'm saying they took him out of the mix because he was a he was
a very altruistic person, like to his
one of the things he wanted
to like
to build.
free information and free the internet. I watched the documentary about him.
Yeah,
what's it called again? The internet's own boy.
Yeah,
I think it's called.
Yeah.
But one of the things, that documentary, if you want to learn more about it.
One of the things he did is he went into a place that
UCLA.
That's thank you.
UCLA.
And he had a jump drive to get all of the paywalled scientific papers, because he wanted the scientific papers to be free for everyone, because they were paid for by everyone. And so he was trying to democratize the information. And just to clarify for people, like, at universities, there's these big databases of all the different studies that have been done. And there's a bunch of different databases that do this. One of the big ones is called JSTOR, JSTOR with no E on the end. And I'm pretty sure he was doing it through JSTOR at the time. But this guy was like a computer wizard, and he just created this code and was able to like sneak into the right room in UCLA, get into their mainframe or whatever, and just like download all studies that existed, just to like make it freely available. Because from his perspective, it was very much like, we have this technology to share all this information with one another. So like, why aren't we doing that? He was one of those like very sweet, innocent individuals who was like, the internet is going to change the world for the better. For the better.
Like, let's do that.
And
then he died at what age?
He was,
but like he was like young, and he just like died.
Yeah, he was like 25 or 26. So what happened with Reddit is they used HY Combiner. It's Hacker News. So they seeded Reddit with a bunch of guys from Hacker News. They were basically posting like, hey, look at this Reddit. So like the education level at Reddit at the beginning was really high. And then by the time Aaron Schwartz was not really associated, but he was like an owner, I think they tried to buy him out. And then after they bought him out, UCLA thing happened. He was on to his next project. But
and they really actually, that's a great case for, looking at his case, because it was totally unfair how they characterized him.
Oh yeah,
they being like theft or something, or I forget how they phrased it, but they try to like equate him to terrorist, like a war criminal or a terrorist.
Oh yeah, they did. It was a full blown psychological warfare on him. They like
it was an example. It was an example of kind of what we're seeing now with like the J6, January 6th, where it's like these people are terrorists, and like the state is clamping down on them for, quite frankly, having the wrong politics and wrong ideas. So what a time we're living in.
Unbelievable, man. I've got to go. So this is a great time to end it. I thought it was a great conversation today, man. You were right. We should have just recorded the whole thing, but this is
it's all right. No, you guys didn't miss much. You didn't miss much.
There's just a little bit. I mean, I think we told them pretty much everything. So where can they find you? Last words, any final thoughts?
Yeah, that's don't be afraid to open yourselves up to looking at the world through good and evil, and giving a prayer to the man upstairs. It's something that I've personally been starting to do, and it gives me a lot of peace of mind. Um, Especially praying for my family members who got the jab. But you can find me on YouTube and Instagram at Greg Wycliffe, one word, and
Two E's.
And two
Right?
F's and one E.
Oh, turn it. I got it wrong again. I didn't put an overlay on last time. So
spell my name right.
Two S and one E. Are you sure? Okay. You can find my stuff at CanadaPoly.com, CanadaReport.co, and SpeakingMoistly.co. We'll get our back catalog and a bunch of other interviews that I've done if you're interested in all of that. And thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.